Today we're spectating a Season 2 Celestial Moon Knight to see what he does better and how we can improve together. So we have our guy here, Clysander. I don't really know how you say his name exactly, to be honest. But what I want to know when it comes to Moon Knight is how this guy stays alive and also his positioning when it comes to playing this hero, because Moon Knight dies very easily. Because even though he has the overshields with the most recent buff, I still find that if you don't position well with him enough, and even if you do position well with him, you can die very quickly. Now, he does get a kill here, and he's using his unks where there's a bunch of enemies. He doesn't fire the unk far too far away from him, if that makes any sort of sense, and he's already got an ultimate already, which is pretty insane. You do build up loads of ult charge with Moon Knight. It's just one of those heroes where you can get his ultimate very, very quickly. And that is one of the good things about him, and that's probably where you're going to be getting most of your kills from when you're playing Moon Knight, is just the fact that you're going to have constant ultimates all the time. And for that reason, you kind of almost want to use it every time you get it. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting your kill potential with this hero. And they kind of balance that a lot with different heroes, where if their primary damage output is not the best, you usually get your ultimate a lot faster, and obviously Moon Knight's one of those heroes. As you can see here, he's positioned himself well within his team. He's standing inside his teammate's ultimate here, the Luna Snow. And the way the attack works on Moon Knight is that it hits every enemy that's close to either the unk, or if you attack a tank, for example, then obviously it's going to hit everyone around it. And that's the reason why you build up so much ult charge with Moon Knight. But not only that, it basically allows you to displace enemies out of the way. If you find that a lot of enemies are grouped together, then Moon Knight is one of the best heroes to deal with that. He's probably one of the only heroes, maybe Moon Knight and Squirrel Girl are the best two, to kind of displace enemies out of their position when they're clustered together. There's almost a hero for every single instance. That Hive Agamotto got cancelled there, which is absolutely insane, with the Luna Snow freeze ball. And he used the zipline now to get to high ground and popped his ultimate at the exact same time. And that's an example of displacing the enemies out of their position right there with his ultimate. So even though he didn't get any kills, he separated the enemy team up, and it allowed him to get a couple of picks, or allowed his team to get a couple of picks. Now, at this point, I would be meleeing, which he did do. The Moon Knight melee is actually pretty decent, by the way. It's one of the more faster striking melee, so if you find yourself getting dived on, that is kind of his best like anti-dive mechanic, besides throwing an unk on yourself and just spam firing. But if you don't have your unk available, then just use his melee, man. It's actually pretty decent at close range. When it comes to damage output in general, when you're firing against one enemy target, he's not the best. As you can see, when he's firing against the Magneto there, he's not really outputting tons of damage, and you do need to have really good aim with Moon Knight, because you need to lead your shots as well as this kind of burst fire attack. But again, when it comes to his positioning, you don't really see him taking up too much high ground, and I think that's the reason when you come to higher ranks, besides here when he's obviously got his ultimate now, and again he gets an insanely good pick there. But I think in the higher ranks, people expect Moon Knight to be on the high ground, and obviously at that point, then you're going to be singled out if you're by yourself, and you cannot survive nearly as long, unless you maybe have that Cloak and Dagger team up. But you don't always have that available, right? So he's playing well within his team, where his teammates can heal him up, and he's not far away from the action. That Star-Lord gets taken out in his team. He's just firing shots down range. But again, it's pretty difficult to see. Gets this high ground here where he could have maybe killed that Storm. You can kill Storm through her ultimate, by the way, if he fired his unk down. Fired his unk down there. Done a bit of damage. Again, this is where Moon Knight excels. So when you see the enemies are clustered together, that is when you're going to be dealing the most amount of damage and getting the most amount of your kills. Trying to single out enemies is not what Moon Knight is good at, unfortunately, unless you have your unk available. That is the only time where that works, like right here, for example. That Black Panther was one shot. And again, he's missing quite a lot of shots here, but that is going to happen, especially when you're playing on controller and you're playing Moon Knight. It's nothing to do with the skill level of this guy. But again, as you can see, loads of ult charge gets built up, gets to use his ultimate again, and he's always using it every time it's available. So that is something, like I said, is part of his kit. You need to use it like it's just an ability essentially and not an ultimate. Just because he gets it so often and you want to make sure you're using it as often as you can. To make sure you're getting as many kills as you can, of course. Pushing up really well with his team here. They've got 3 DPS. One is a Star-Lord and one is a Hawkeye. So pretty weird setup, to be honest. But regardless, they're making it work. And they've got one tank and a low-key. Hitting his shots on this Strange from behind. That was actually good shots there. And now he's put the Unk down where the spawn is. And they might get this final push. Unless the enemy team has ultimates at the moment, we'll need to see. So the enemy team have got a couple of ultimates and they're probably going to be ready to use them. So there we go. We've got the first ultimate. We've got our ultimate again. So we'll need to wait before we use that. We've been Eye of Agamotto anyway, which we do get wiped, unfortunately. Or at least take away most of the damage from it. So we want to make sure that's baited out first before we use ours, right? Now, obviously, our Moon Knight doesn't know that the enemy Invisible Woman has her ultimate. So we'll need to see when he pops this. Good damage there, good movement. With Moon Knight, you need to save your abilities, either your zipline or your double jump, so that you can kind of get out and in of scenarios, because like I said, you're pretty much a sitting duck. This is the best position for him. He's behind some cover, he's firing the shots down, he's getting a lot of tags. Now he's going to pop his ultimate. Good ultimate there, really good ultimate actually, especially with the angle he had. He got a good pick and now he's ready to go. Now, like I said, when he was building up a lot more ult charge before he had his ultimate, he was holding on to it. He probably could have popped it a bit earlier, but I think he picked the right time to use that. And again, popped his ult down now. The enemy Invisible Woman has now used her ultimate, and we've got our low-key lamps to keep us alive through that, hopefully. Just trying to get the damage out. And we're almost on the final push. Got the Unk down there as well. Get the melee finish, because his melee is super strong. Eye of Agamotto came out, and another Luna Snow ultimate has came out as well. Now that we're halfway through this video, if you are enjoying it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as we will be spectating high level players, low level players, and any world records in between that. When it comes to Moon Knight, positioning is key, and that is how you can stay alive a lot longer, because especially in the higher ranked games like the one we're spectating right now, Moon Knight can die very often, but he is a really fun hero to use, so let's get straight back into it. So on the defending side now, and we're going to see how we do it here. He's got the Unk on the wall. Now, when it comes to placing Unks on walls, I don't think it's the best thing to do, really, because you're losing a lot of surface area doing that. I made a whole guide on how to use Moon Knight's Unks, and I'll leave it at the end of this video so you can check out how is the best ways to use it. Good quick kill there. He actually got a double kill, which is pretty solid, and that is just by having that attack there. This is the best anti-dive you can do. Just throw the Unk down and fire it at your feet, and that way Spider-Man can't kill you, or any dive hero for that matter. They've got actually a Venom and a Spider-Man now, and he needs to be a bit more careful here, because that will counter him quite a lot. The only good thing is that the way that they're playing right now is they're playing very close to each other, and that in and of itself counters a lot of dive in general, right? So if you're playing with your team, next to your team, essentially close to your team, I know all of that just said the same thing, but if you're playing with your team, that kind of counters dive in and of itself, right? Because they need to pick who they want to focus, and it's not quite as easy just to pick out a target at that point. As you can see, Venom got absolutely destroyed. I'm placing down this Unk if Spider-Man decides to dive, and great ultimate placement again, man. The ult placement on the way this guy is using it is absolutely insane. He's got the Snowflake from his Luna Snow, so obviously the Luna Snow is keeping him alive a little bit longer than he probably would have been as well, but that is something that you just kind of coordinate with your team. And now we've got a rocket on our team as well, so we've got an extra respawn if we need that. Firing shots down range. Being careful not to use his Unks just yet, because obviously Magneto's got his shields up. If you fire an Unk at his shield, it does not work. Now he's fired his Unk down, and taking shots at the Venom here. The enemy Adam Warlocks use their ultimate. We've got our ultimate from our Magneto here. Fire shots down range. Now we've got our damage buff. And here is where we place down our ultimate or our Unk to try and do as much damage as possible with the ultimate, which it did get destroyed, I think, as well. Pushed up here. Storms out. Got a lot of picks. A lot of damage gets done with Moon Knight because of the way, like I said, his attacks work. And they're playing really, really well together. So that's one thing I want to point out as well, that they're playing well together as well. And he's not taking up any high ground within this game. Very rarely he does that. And he's managed to stay alive pretty much throughout the entire game. He's not died at all very often here. So you don't need to play high ground with Moon Knight, or you probably shouldn't play high ground with Moon Knight in general, just because of the fact that you will get picked off a lot easier. For example, when they had the Venom and the Spider-Man in the enemy team, he would have got picked off way easier if he was standing up on high ground, whereas supports could not see him. But he's standing right with the supports now. When they're getting dived, he's popping the Unks down, which is obviously exactly what you want to do. I think you should use his melee a little bit more, because you're not going to be able to hit those shots at that close range and track the targets. The melee is pretty solid at kind of dealing that damage there. He's backed off a little bit here because we're getting dived. And he's trying his best to help his teammates with the dive here as well, but we kind of got pushed a bit. But we're getting pushed back. And he's trying to pull off a bit of a flank and got his ultimate. He should wait for after this and then pop it. Good timing on that one there. And he's firing shots down range here. And we've got a flank from the Magic. So he spotted the flank. But there's not really too much he can do with that. Moon Knight is not the best hero to deal with flanks, to be fair. So maybe one of his other teammates will be better off dealing with that. Maybe like the Star-Lord, for example. Got another ultimate here, which he could place down, which he did. Using his melee correctly now. So now you should just keep meleeing. And he gets the Magneto. There you go. Great melee usage and good ultimate usage as well. And obviously the combo is there as well when you're using the primary secondary combo. Realizes the Magic is round the corner. I don't know if he knew that or not, because he can't see through walls. We can see it in spectator mode. But he realized it was there and he popped the Unk down to try and deal some damage. Dropping back with his team. Only 60 seconds to hold off now. We've got the enemy Storm trying to do an ultimate. And usually enemy ultimates, when it comes to a Storm, usually to try and come up from behind you and push towards your team. But that was a good ultimate, man, and we can't really do too much for that besides back off right here. The Luna Snow's healing us up, and we've got the enemy team pushing up now, and they managed to hit the checkpoint, unfortunately. The Magic's now trying to dive again. As you can see, the Magic's pushing up. Magneto is low, but there's not much we could do with that right now. The thing that you need to coordinate if you're playing solo queue is a bit more difficult to do is, for example, heroes like Star-Lord can deal with magic a little bit better than Moon Knight can. So obviously if his teammate was coordinating with him, another good ultimate placement by the way, was coordinating with him, the Star-Lord should be focusing on the divers and he'd be able to take them out a little bit easier than Moon Knight can, and Moon Knight can then focus on dealing damage to those bigger targets or focusing on the backline by using his Unks. There we go, Magic's diving by herself and she's going to get wiped out there, of course. Got a good push going and holding off the enemy team really well here. Dropping back with our team here, got a Luna Snow ultimate. We can stand inside now. And if we get that slight damage buff, we may be able to do a bit more damage throwing our Unk down. Agamotto went out as well there. There's a lot of ultimates going. Another ultimate, and we popped our ultimate too, but we're not going to get anything from that because of the Invisible Woman ultimate. So that is kind of like the counters of ultimates in this game, where the Invisible Woman ultimate essentially counters our own because it doesn't allow the maximum amount of damage to go through as possible. Good Unk placement there to get a finish, and that's kind of the way you want to be using that. Unks are kind of a tool that you use. People kind of rely too heavily on it, and that's what this guy's showing here. You want to be firing your shots in the clusters of enemies and using your unks to get the finishes or saving it for when someone's diving you. You should not be relying on your unks to get you kills. So there we have it. That's our player Classander, who goes 47 and 3 with 42k damage inside this game and playing Moon Knight. And I think Moon Knight is a very fun hero to play, but getting value from him is a bit difficult, as I've mentioned throughout this video. But as you can see, if you position yourself well within your team and you have decent aim, not to mention if you use your unks at the correct time and constantly use your ultimate, which is one of the best things to do, you could definitely drop insanely good games with Moon Knight. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and thank you very much for watching.